Hello all, welcome back to the next one. In this one, we will take a look at TestNG asserts. So TestNG gives us a power to take decisions in the middle of the test run with the help of asserts. With this, we can actually put various checkpoints in our test methods, and asserts are the most popular and frequently used methods while creating any of the automation scripts. Whether we are doing Selenium WebDriver or REST API or some other automation, there will be many situations where you would just like to verify something. And to verify something, all you need to do is to put an assert statement on it. So we have discussed about creating an object of the class which is we are testing and calling the methods, and we can get the results, right? Now what? What do we do after getting the result? We need to verify if the result is correct or not. And then we need to take a decision whether we need to pass the test case or we need to fail the test case based on the output, right? So what I've done here is I have added couple of more methods. So this was the original one that we had for some numbers. I added one more for add strings. It takes two strings and returns a plus space, so pay attention, plus b, it returns this. And then this method is just get array. So it doesn't take anything. I'm just returning one array, and the array is integer array with values 1, 2, 3. All we want to pay attention and importance is to how we call it, or basically how we write our TestNG test methods instead of the main class, right? So let's come up here. This was the method that we created previously also. Now I created a new class and named it as TestNG underscore asserts. I always suggest you guys to have the first letter of the word capital in Java. Whenever you are creating a Java class, please notice it. So that's what I'm doing. And do not name a class like TestNG, because TestNG is already a library existing, right? And there might be clashes and conflicts. So always give your own names. What I do always is TestNG and then append it with something, so it's different from the original one. Now what we can do here is we have the result here. Just take a look at the first method, test sum. So we are just printing out some value and then creating an object and calling the method sum numbers. So this is our result. Now what we want to do here is we want to test if it's correct or not. We can say assert dot, and you can see that it will show you where it's coming from. So if you have JUnit library added to your class path, you will see an assert from JUnit also. So that's where you need to pay attention to. Pick the one from org.testng. This is what we are learning, org.testng. So in org.testng also we have lot of asserts. So basically it's most of them are just the same method. You will see assert equals. They're just different overloads. This is for boolean, this is for byte, character, collection, integer, iterable, long, object, short, string. So these are all the overloads for the same method. All are assert equals. Then we will see assert not equals is there, assert equals deep, assert no order, assert false, assert not equals, and then there should be assert true also, assert not null, assert not same. So basically more assert true. So there are just these few only, but there are different overloads for different data type. Mostly what we use here is assert true, assert false, and assert equals. These are the two most used ones. So let me just open one document also that I created. So these are the most commonly used ones. And assert true, basically this one, this statement fails the test and stops the execution of the test if the actual output is false. Because we are asserting true here, and if the output is false, then it's gonna fail the test case. And whenever a test case fails, it will stop the execution of that particular test method. Assert false works opposite to assert true, obviously. So since we are asserting false and the output is true, it will fail the test case. So that's pretty obvious. And assert equals, it also works the same way. It will also stop the execution if the value is not equal, and it will continue the execution if the value is equal. And we'll see that in a minute. So now I'm gonna assert dot assert equals. So what we'll do here is we'll find the one for integer. So this is the one for integer, and hit enter. As soon as I do that, I see a new import statement added here. You guys can pay attention up there. So this thing is import org.testng.assert. This thing is added here by default automatically. Now here we want to give the actual and expected values so that this statement can verify things for us. So the actual value is the result that we are getting from the method. This is the actual. Actual means what actually is coming from the test method or output, or what really exists somewhere. If you are doing it with Selenium WebDriver, actual means whatever we are seeing on the website or web application. If you are doing on REST API, it means what we are getting it from the REST API. So actual means that, and expected is what we expect, so that we can verify actual versus expected. So in this case, if I pass 1, 2 to some numbers, I expect a value 3 to be output, right? So this is gonna assert it. The next thing is, again we created an object, and I have an expected string here. I'm saying hello world. What we're going to do here is we're going to create one more variable called string result. And here we're gonna call the method obj.addStrings, and for both the arguments, we're gonna pass some value. So hello, and here we're gonna provide world, right? So if we provide these values, then it means we expect the output string to be hello space world. You can notice there is a space because the add string method does that, and we saw that initially, right? So that's what we expect. Now to assert something, what we can do here is we can do assert dot assert equals, and we can pick the overload of string, and the first one is gonna be the actual, the second is gonna be the expected, and that's our second test method done. So what we are doing is we are taking a look at multiple data types in assert. So we have looked at integer, we have looked at string. Another one we'll look at the data type, which is array. So it's kind of a good data structure. So we saw 3 different types, and you can practice on more also, but it's the same method. And in this last one we can do int. So this is the one where we will get the array, right? So this method will just return the array, and the array is 1, 2, 3, and it's an integer type. So since it's integer type, we will define an array called int array result, and I'm just giving the result name because it's kind of meaningful. We're getting the result of the method, but you can use any name here. And obj dot get array, we call this method. And after we call this method, we need to just assert it. So assert dot, I can maximize this. Let's bring it up in so you guys can see it easily. Assert dot assert equals, and here I don't see a array type here. Int array, there is nothing. So we can pick the one for object array. You can see this one, object and square brackets. And now you will see that we are not getting org.testng assert. The reason is because we already have an import statement here. That's why it's not showing. So we can pick this one, and the first one is obviously result, and the second one is our expected array. So now we have 3 methods So we can run this TestNG class and we can see the output. I saved the class and right click, run as TestNG test, and it says running test array, then it ran the test for test strings, then it ran for test sum. So basically test array ran first because alphabetical order A appears before both the S, and all the tests are successful. It ran 3 tests, no failures, and we can see up here that all the 3 test methods executed properly. So it's all good. We can actually put here like /n, which is for next line. So if I do this, I'll see a little better clean output. So it's gonna add one line before the print statement. So right click, run as TestNG test, and it ran all these tests, right? So all the tests are run, everything is properly run and all fine. Now let's see what happens if something fails. Let me just actually, let's take a look at the array example, because this is the kind of a little complex out of all these 3. So in expected array, I'm going to add one more integer called 4. And the actual is going to be 1, 2, 3. But I'm expecting 1, 2, 3, 4. So definitely this test should be failed, right? So let me add one more statement here. Running test, or maybe I would say end test. So let me just show you first. So by the proper running, which is, it's still successful. So let me run it again. And it runs everything. So running test array, and then it prints one more statement, end test array, because we added one more system.out.println, and remaining are all same, right? Now I'm gonna fail this test. So add 4 and right click, save the file, right click, run as TestNG test, and you can see some failures are there. And what is the result right now? It says running test array, and we don't see a new statement here, which was the end test array, right? Directly it went to running test strings, and then running test sum. And it says test strings is passed, test sum is passed, and test arrays is failed. And why it failed? It says expected 4 but found 3. The reason is we are expecting something and it did not have those things, right? So that's why it failed. But the most important thing is this line also didn't print. What happens is whenever a test case or test method fails at a assert statement, the further lines are not executed and this method is done. It is marked as failed, and then TestNG will move to execute the next method. So that's why test strings is executed and then test sum is executed. So other methods are executed fine, but in this method, if something fails, some line fails, the following lines are not executed. And you can see it in the console here, and here if we see, we can see test arrays is failed, and we can see the exception here also, and test strings and test sum is successful. So basically that's about it. These are asserts. You can play around with them, look at the code files, and let me know if you have any questions. But I think this is pretty good, so practice as much as possible, and I'll see you in the next lectures. Thanks for running this one.